I stood there frozen, my phone still pressed to my ear, unable to breathe. Emily had called me earlier, but when I answered, she must have thought she'd already hung up. I heard her voice clearly through the speaker, talking to our parents in the background. Living with her has been hell. I can't take her anymore. My heart dropped. She wasn't talking about anyone else. She was talking about me. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. My chest felt tight, and my throat burned. I listened to my own sister, the person I thought understood me best, tear me apart behind my back. She sounded so calm, so certain, like she'd been waiting to say those words for a long time. I wanted to hang up, but I couldn't. It was like my heart needed to hear every painful word to believe it was real. When the call finally ended, I just stood there staring at the floor. I kept replaying her voice in my head. Emily, the person I had trusted, shared everything with, cried to when things went wrong, had been pretending. Every laugh we shared, every late-night talk now felt fake. I thought about all the times I defended her when our parents compared us, all the times I took her side just to keep the peace. And this is what I got in return. That night, the house felt colder than usual. Emily was in her room, probably watching a show or talking to someone, while I sat in the living room with my phone in my hand. My stomach turned every time I remembered her tone, the frustration, the disgust. It wasn't just anger, it was hate. The kind that builds over time, quietly, until it spills out. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about what I might have done wrong. I paid half the bills, cleaned up after her, helped when she was behind on rent. I thought we were a team. Maybe I talked too much about work, or maybe she hated how quiet I'd become lately. But no matter how much I blamed myself, the truth was simple. She meant every word she said. By morning, something inside me had changed. I didn't cry anymore. I just felt empty. When she came into the kitchen and smiled like nothing happened, I couldn't look her in the eyes. I realized she had no idea I'd hurt her. That made it worse, knowing she could talk to me so kindly after saying such cruel things. I stayed silent, pretending to be okay, but deep down, I knew things would never be the same. That call didn't just hurt me. It broke the bond we had built our whole lives. And as much as I wanted to forgive her, I knew a part of me never would. That was the day I stopped seeing her as my sister. After Mom's heart surgery, Emily and I decided to move in together. It made sense at the time. We both wanted to help out with the hospital bills and keep things steady at home. Mom couldn't work for a while and Dad's hours were cut, so I took on 2 jobs just to keep the house running. I worked mornings at a local cafe and nights at a grocery store. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, but I didn't complain. I thought we were doing this together, 2 sisters trying to keep our family from falling apart. Emily worked from home, sitting at her laptop most of the day, attending meetings, and talking about how exhausting it was. I tried to stay quiet when she worked, tiptoeing around like a guest in my own home. But somehow it was never enough. She'd sigh loudly or make little comments like, "Can you not bang things around?" Or, "You're so emotional about everything." At first, I brushed it off. I told myself she was stressed too, that we were both just tired and trying our best. But sometimes the way she looked at me, like I was a problem, made me feel small. Our parents never saw it that way. They always looked at Emily as the one who had it all figured out. Growing up, she was the perfect student, the one who made them proud. Straight A's, college scholarship, nice boyfriend, promising career. She was everything they wanted in a daughter. And me? I was the one still trying to find herself. The one who switched majors twice. The one who moved back home when things got tough. I tried not to let it bother me, but it did. No matter what I did, I was never enough next to her. When we first moved in together, I thought maybe it would bring us closer. I imagined us cooking together, watching movies, sharing laughs like we used to. But instead, the house became a place where I constantly felt like I was in her way. Every time she got frustrated, I apologized, even when I didn't do anything wrong. I thought keeping peace was more important than standing up for myself. Looking back, I can see how much I let things slide. I told myself Emily loved me, that she didn't mean the things she said when she was angry. But deep down, I think she always saw me as someone beneath her, someone she had to tolerate, not love. I didn't realize it back then, but that tension had been building for years. The call I overheard later didn't come out of nowhere. It was just the final piece of a truth that had been there all along. She didn't just see me as difficult. She saw me as a burden she wished. The next morning felt strange, like waking up in someone else's life. Emily was in the kitchen making pancakes, humming softly like everything was fine. She looked up and smiled at me, asking if I wanted coffee. I said yes, keeping my face calm even though my chest felt heavy. She had no idea that I knew what she'd said the night before. I could still hear her voice in my head, calling our life together hell. I forced myself to sit across from her and act normal. She talked about work, about some new client she was excited about, and I nodded, pretending to listen. Every word felt fake now. I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before. How she used a soft voice when she wanted something. How she smiled too quickly. How she looked at me with pity instead of warmth. It all made sense now. She had been pretending for a long time. The worst part was how good she was at it. When our parents called that evening, she put them on speaker and started telling them how hard things had been for her lately. She said I'd been a little distant and snappy. I stood there, stunned, realizing she was turning things around to make me look like the problem. I hadn't said or done anything wrong, but she was already setting up her story, painting herself as the calm, patient sister dealing with my supposed mood. I didn't say a word. I just listened. When she hung up, she looked at me and smiled like nothing had happened. That smile used to make me feel safe. Now it made my stomach twist. I started to see her differently. Every action, every word had another meaning. When she offered to do the dishes, I wondered if it was guilt. When she hugged me goodbye before heading to a friend's place, I wondered if she was laughing inside. Days went by like that. I watched her carefully, and the more I observed, the clearer it became that Emily wasn't who I thought she was. She would drop little comments about me to others, small things that sounded innocent but made me look unreliable or emotional. "Claire's been so tired lately," she'd say with a sympathetic tone, or "she gets stressed easily." To anyone else, it sounded like concern. To me, it was another dig, another way to make herself look better. It hurt in ways I can't explain. Living with her became unbearable, not because of what she said, but because of what I knew. Every gesture felt staged. Every word she spoke carried a hidden edge. I couldn't tell anyone, not even our parents, because she had already written the story, and in her version, I was the problem. So, I stayed quiet, pretending I didn't know the truth, while inside It happened late at night. I had just come home from a long shift, tired and ready to collapse on the couch. Emily's door was slightly open, and I could hear her voice. I wasn't trying to listen, but the words came out clear and sharp. She was on the phone with her fiancé, Daniel. Her tone was calm but cold. "I can't wait to move out," she said. "Living with her is suffocating. I need my own space." My heart dropped again, just like the night she forgot to hang up. I stood there in the hallway, frozen, listening to her complain about me like I was some sort of problem she couldn't get rid of. She laughed softly after saying it, like it was a joke, and that laughter broke something inside me. I didn't cry this time. I just felt numb. When she hung up, I walked into her room before I could stop myself. She looked up, surprised, phone still in her hand. "You think living with me is suffocating?" I asked. My voice came out steady, but my hands were shaking. She blinked, silent for a second, then sighed like she was tired of pretending. "You're always taking things personally, Claire," she said flatly. "You make everything about you. Living with you drains me." Those words hit harder than anything she'd ever said before. She didn't yell, she didn't sound angry, she sounded honest. That's what hurt the most. For her, this wasn't a misunderstanding or a moment of frustration. It was how she truly felt. I stared at her, trying to find something human in her face. Guilt, regret, anything. But she just looked annoyed, like I was interrupting her evening. I wanted to argue, to tell her all the things I'd done for her, all the nights I stayed up worrying, all the sacrifices I made to make our life easier. But I stopped myself. Nothing I said would matter. She had already decided what I was to her. Without saying another word, I turned around and went to my room. I grabbed my duffel bag, threw in a few clothes, my wallet, and the small box that held the things that mattered most. A photo of Mom, an old bracelet, and a letter I'd written to myself years ago about starting fresh someday. When I walked out, Emily didn't try to stop me. She just stood there, arms crossed, watching. Her silence said everything. I closed the door behind me, and the sound of it shutting felt final. I didn't have a plan or a destination. I just knew I couldn't stay there another second. I walked down the street with my bag over my shoulder, the night air cold against my skin. For the first time, I felt completely alone, but somewhere deep inside, there was also a strange sense of relief. Maybe walking away was the only thing left to save what was left of me. Slowly started to pull away from her, one silent step at a time. The first night in my new place was the hardest. The studio apartment was small, barely enough space for a bed, a small table, and a few boxes stacked in the corner. The walls were bare, and the silence felt heavy. I sat on the floor with my bag beside me and just stared at nothing. For the first time in years, there was no one around. No Emily, no noise, no pretending. Just me. The air felt cold, even though the heater was on. I wrapped myself in a blanket and tried to sleep, but my mind kept replaying her words. "You drain me." It echoed again and again until I finally cried. I cried for everything. The years I spent trying to please everyone, the love that was never returned, and the home that never felt like mine. Days passed, and my phone stayed silent. I kept checking it out of habit, hoping maybe Mom or Dad would call, but they didn't. Later, I found out Emily had already told them her version of the story, that I'd stormed out during one of my emotional episodes. I could imagine them believing her easily. She'd always been calm and collected, while I was the one who felt too much. I didn't even bother to defend myself. I was too tired. Money was tight, so I took a job at a small bookstore downtown. The pay wasn't great, but it gave me a reason to get up every morning. I liked the quiet there, the smell of old pages, the hum of soft music, the sound of people flipping through books. No one knew me, and no one expected anything. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in years. At night, I'd cook simple meals, sit by the window, and watch the city lights. The loneliness didn't go away right away, but it slowly started to feel less painful. I began to notice small things, how the sun looked in the morning, how quiet the rain sounded when it hit the window. Little moments that reminded me I was still here, still living. One evening, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My face looked tired, but my eyes were calmer. I realized I hadn't felt angry in days. The sadness was still there, but it didn't control me anymore. I had space to breathe, space to exist without walking on eggshells. That month taught me something I'd never understood before. Peace doesn't always come with peace. Sometimes it comes when you finally let go of those who make you question your worth. Emily could twist the story however she wanted, but deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't the problem. I just loved the wrong person. It had been months since I last heard from anyone in my family. Life had fallen into a quiet routine: work, home, sleep, repeat. I wasn't expecting anything to change, but one afternoon my phone rang. I saw Mom's name on the screen, and for a moment, I just stared at it. My hands trembled as I answered. Her voice sounded softer than I remembered, but also uncertain, like she didn't know where to start. "Claire," she said, pausing for a moment. I don't know what to say." I asked if everything was okay, and that's when she told me. Emily's fiancé, Daniel, had called off the wedding. He'd found out that she'd been lying, not just to him, but to everyone around her. Apparently, she had told different stories to different people, twisting things to make herself look innocent and others look bad. It finally caught up to her. Mom said Daniel came to the house to return some of Emily's things. That's when he told my parents what really happened, how Emily had been manipulating him, trying to make him pity her, saying her family didn't understand her, and that she was always saving me. He said he started noticing how her stories never matched up. When he confronted her, she broke down and admitted she had exaggerated a lot of things. That was enough for him to walk away. I sat there in silence, listening. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel angry or even surprised. A part of me always knew that the truth would find its way out. It just took longer than I expected. Then Mom's voice cracked a little. "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you say something?" I took a deep breath and told her everything. About the night Emily forgot to hang up, about what she said to her fiancé, and how I left after she told me I drained her. I didn't say it with bitterness. I just told the truth. When I finished, there was nothing but silence on the other end. For a moment, I thought she'd hung up. Then I heard her whisper, "I'm so sorry, Claire. We were wrong about you." Her voice broke when she said it, and for the first time, I realized how much I had needed to hear those words. Not because they could fix what happened, but because they finally gave me peace. After that call, I didn't feel the need to prove anything anymore. The truth had come out on its own. I didn't gloat or feel satisfaction, just a quiet sense of closure. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as the difficult daughter or the emotional sister, but simply as someone who had been trying her best all along. Too much, and it took losing everything to finally find myself. A week after that phone call with Mom, I heard a knock at my door. It was late, almost dark outside, and I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there she was, Emily. She looked nothing like the confident sister I remembered. Her hair was messy, her eyes red and swollen, and she had that tired look that comes from more than just lack of sleep. She stood there holding a small bag, not saying a word for a few seconds. "Can I come in?" she finally asked. Her voice was soft, almost broken. I stepped aside without answering. She walked in slowly, glancing around my tiny apartment like she didn't know where to stand. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was heavy, filled with everything that had happened. Then she started crying. Not the loud, dramatic kind, the quiet kind that comes from guilt. "I messed up, Claire," she said through tears. "I ruined everything. I didn't say anything. I just listened." She kept talking, saying she never meant for things to get so bad, that she didn't realize how much she had hurt me until everything in her own life fell apart. Then she said something I never expected to hear from her. "I was jealous of you," she admitted, looking down at her hands. "You've always had something I didn't. People like you without you trying. You can start over. You can handle being alone. I hate that I needed everyone's approval, and you never did." Her words hit me hard. I had spent so long feeling small next to her, never realizing that she saw something in me that she couldn't find in herself. I wanted to feel angry, but instead, I just felt tired. She wiped her face and said she didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted to say sorry. I lied to everyone because I couldn't stand the idea of not being the good one, she said. And now I've lost everything because of it. For a long time, I didn't reply. I watched her sit there, broken and shaking, and part of me felt pity. But another part remembered every sleepless night, every cruel word, every time she made me feel like I didn't matter. I hear you, I finally said quietly. But I can't forgive you. Not yet. She nodded, like she already knew that would be my answer. After a while, she stood up, thanked me for letting her talk, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she looked back and said, I hope someday you can let me make things right. When the door closed, I stood there for a long time, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. She had finally admitted the truth, but that didn't erase. After Emily's visit, something in me changed. Her apology didn't erase the pain, but it gave me clarity. I realized that I didn't want to keep living in the shadow of what she had done. I was tired of carrying anger and sadness. I wanted to build something of my own, something that made me proud without needing anyone's approval. One weekend, while cleaning my apartment, I got an idea. Organizing and decluttering had helped me feel calm when my life was falling apart. It gave me control when everything else felt out of reach. I decided to turn that feeling into something more. I started a small business helping people organize their homes. Closets, garages, offices, whatever they needed. It began as a simple service, but it quickly became something deeper. My first few clients were local families and single parents who felt overwhelmed by their messy spaces. I understood them. I knew what it felt like to feel stuck and buried under chaos. When I helped them clear things out, it wasn't just about cleaning, it was about giving them room to breathe. Every time someone smiled and said, I feel lighter, it reminded me how far I'd come. At first, I worked alone, carrying boxes, labeling bins, and making late-night plans to fit in more clients. I was exhausted but happy. Slowly, word started to spread. People recommended me to friends, and soon I had more bookings than I could handle. I hired 2 part-time helpers, and we started taking bigger projects. My little idea had turned into something real. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had once felt trapped, suffocated in a house where I was never enough. Now I was helping others find peace in their homes. The same peace I had fought so hard to find for myself. Each project became personal. I poured my heart into every detail, making sure no one ever felt the way I once did, small, unwanted, or in the way. As the business grew, so did my confidence. I stopped comparing myself to Emily. I no longer needed her approval, or anyone else's. The life I was building came from my own choices, my own work, my own pain turned into purpose. One day, I got a message from Mom saying she had heard about my business from a friend. She sounded proud. That alone meant more than I could say. I realized then that I didn't need to fix the past. I just needed to live better than it had left me. For the first time, I felt truly free. The same pain that once broke me had become the reason I stood on my own 2 feet. I didn't need Emily's validation or her guilt. I had built something real, and that was enough. The pain. Some wounds run too deep to be healed by an apology. Mom's birthday dinner was the first time in a long while that we were all in the same room together. I wasn't sure I even wanted to go, but Mom had asked me personally, and I could tell it meant a lot to her. When I arrived, the table was already set, candles flickering, and the smell of home-cooked food filled the house. Emily was there too, sitting quietly at the far end of the table. Our eyes met for a second, but neither of us said a word. Dinner started out fine, a little awkward but polite. Everyone talked about work, neighbors, and small things that didn't really matter. I kept my focus on Mom. She looked happy, and that was all I cared about. But halfway through the meal, I noticed Emily fidgeting. She kept glancing at me and then at Mom, as if she was trying to gather courage. Finally, she put her fork down and took a deep breath. The room went quiet. I need to say something, she said, her voice shaky. Everyone turned to look at her. She looked directly at me, then at our parents. I lied about Claire, she said softly. I made her look bad because I couldn't handle my own insecurities. No one spoke. Even the sound of the clock on the wall seemed to stop. Mom's expression changed from confusion to shock. Dad's hand froze halfway to his glass. Emily kept talking, her voice trembling but steady enough to be heard. I blamed her for things she never did, she continued. I made her look unstable when really, I was the one who couldn't face my own mistakes. I was jealous, and I took it out on her. For years, I had imagined a moment like this, but standing there in it didn't feel the way I thought it would. There was no satisfaction, no joy, just a deep, quiet ache. I looked at Mom, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. She reached for my hand under the table. Emily started crying, saying she wanted to make things right, that she was sorry for all the hurt she caused. Everyone sat in silence, letting her words hang in the air. It was strange hearing her confess like that. The same sister who had spent years pretending I was the problem now standing there, admitting it all. When she finally stopped talking, I took a slow breath and said, "I forgive you, but I'll never forget." My voice didn't shake, and I didn't look angry. I just needed to say it once and let it go. Then I stood up, hugged Mom, and told her happy birthday again before leaving the table. As I walked out, I felt lighter. The truth was finally out, and for the first time in years, I didn't need to defend myself. The silence. A year later, I finally bought my first home. It wasn't big or fancy, but it felt perfect to me. Every corner of it carried a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I decorated it slowly, choosing each item carefully, not to impress anyone, but to make it feel like mine. On one wall in my small office, I hung a framed photo of my old studio apartment. The photo wasn't beautiful, but it reminded me of where my healing began. That tiny place was where I learned to breathe again, to stand on my own feet, and to stop searching for love in the wrong places. Some mornings, I sit by the window with a cup of coffee, looking out at the quiet street below. Life feels calmer now. I have clients who trust me, friends who care for me, and peace in my heart. There's no more tension, no more trying to prove that I'm good enough. I used to think happiness meant fixing broken relationships or getting everyone's approval. But now I know, sometimes happiness is simply learning to let go. Every once in a while, I think about that phone call, the one that changed everything. Back then, it felt like the worst moment of my life. I remember standing there, frozen, my heart breaking as I listened to Emily's word. I thought I had lost everything that day. But now, looking back, I see it differently. That call was the start of something new. It was painful, yes, but it forced me to see the truth. It showed me who I was without everyone else's expectations, and that was the beginning of my freedom. Emily and I don't talk often anymore. Sometimes she sends a message on birthdays or holidays, polite but distant. There's no anger left, just understanding. I know she has her own journey, her own lessons to learn. I no longer need an apology or an explanation. Forgiveness, I've realized, isn't for her, it's for me. It's what allows me to move forward without carrying the weight of the past. One evening, I was organizing some old things and found the small box of keepsakes I took when I left her house. Inside were a few photos, a bracelet we bought together, and a note she once wrote saying, "We'll always have each other." For a moment, I felt a soft ache, but it passed quickly. I smiled, closed the box, and put it away. Some memories are meant to stay in the past, not erased, just released. Now, when I walk through my new home, I feel peace instead of pain. The walls don't hold secrets or tension, only quiet strength. That day when Emily forgot to hang up the call, I thought she destroyed our bond. But in truth, she gave me something much greater, the chance to find myself. She didn't just end our closeness, she set me free. That followed wasn't uncomfortable anymore, it was freedom.